You're a woman, young and shaking, pressed against the cold ground in a tent that smells like sweat and horsehide. It's 11:28, and the air is thick with sharp smoke from a burning Tangut village somewhere beyond the canvas walls. Your wrists ache, tied with rough rope that cuts your skin, and your heart is pounding so loud you're sure the men outside can hear it. Hooves thunder past, the earth trembles under you, and the harsh shouts of Mongol warriors slice the night, proud, fierce, terrifying, and close. You don't know if it's your village they've razed or another, but the screams from earlier still ring in your ears, quick and sharp like a whip crack. A shadow moves at the tent flap, a wide, unyielding shape, and you pull back as your breath catches while the flap flies open. The man who enters isn't just any fighter. His eyes, hard as flint, sweep the dim space, and though you've never seen him, you still know him. Everyone does. Genghis Khan, the conqueror, his name whispered in fear from the steppes to the cities of the Jinn. He says nothing, but his presence rolls through the tent like a storm, and your stomach drops as you realize you're not here by chance. You are a prize, a spoil of war, and that truth weighs on you more than the ropes. Before we dive into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you like learning hidden truths of history, please hit like and subscribe for more like this, and comment below to say where you're listening from. I love that we explore these old stories together from all over the world, linked across time and space by our shared curiosity. The night drags on. The camp clinks and crackles with metal and fires, and low moans rise from the defeated. You're not alone in the tent. Other women, faces streaked with dirt and fear, huddle near, eyes darting like trapped animals. Some are from your village, others from places you'll never know. The Mongols don't care about your names or your stories. To them, you're currency, a way to bind the empire tighter or to feed the wants of its warriors. The man who entered, Genghis Khan, born Temujin, 1162 AD, on the banks of the Onan River, stands still a moment, fur-lined cloak catching the faint glow of a single oil lamp. His face is worn, his jaw set, but something flickers in his gaze. Maybe calculation, maybe a hunger beyond the battlefield. He doesn't touch you, not yet. He signals a guard, a huge man with a scar from temple to chin, and mutters in a tongue you don't know. The guard nods, hauls another woman to her feet, and her muffled cry is swallowed by the noise outside. You want to scream, to fight, but your body freezes with fear of what comes next. This isn't only a tale of battles and wins, though history loves those. The Mongol Empire, forged by Genghis Khan from 1206 to his death in 1227 AD, stretched from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea, a vast land built on warriors' backs and the suffering of the conquered. But beneath the charges and the burning cities lives a darker truth, one the chronicles barely whisper, the system that used women as tools of war, power, and pleasure. The Secret History of the Mongols, a 13th century text, one of the few near-contemporary sources, doesn't dwell on it, but Persian and Chinese writers who saw the Mongol tide hint at its scale. Women like you, taken from Shisha, Khwarezmia, or the Jin state, weren't just war's victims. You were instruments in Genghis Khan's plan. To see why, we go back to the man and his world. Tijin's early life was hard. From the Borjigan clan, son of Useje, a minor chief, and Haron, a woman taken from the Merkid tribe. By 1171 AD, when Tijin was 9, rivals poisoned his father, and the tribe left his family to the steppes' merciless embrace. Haron raised her children in near poverty, living on roots and small game, dodging enemies who saw them as threats. Tijin's wife, Berta, was taken by the Merkid in 1181 AD, a wound that cut deep. He rescued her with allies like Jamuka and Tagaru, but when she returned, she was pregnant. The child, Joshi, born 1182 AD, was accepted as Tijin's own, though doubts lingered. That raw, personal moment shaped the man who became Genghis Khan. The steppe was a place of fragile power and thin loyalty, where women were often used as pieces in deals or feuds. Tijin learned fast. Control meant survival. By 1206 AD, after brutal campaigns, Tijin had united the tribes and took the title Genghis Khan, universal ruler. His empire wasn't just an army, it was a control system, with women at the center. The nomadic, practical Mongols used marriage and concubinage to bind tribes and secure loyalty. Genghis had 4 principal wives, Bort, Kulan, Yasui, and Yasugin, each running an ordo or camp within his massive harem. Historians like Basanji of Torbish, in his 2023 book, Sex in the Land of Genghis Khan, say the harem held about 500 women, although only 44 were officially recorded as wives or concubines. Many were daughters of defeated rulers, Chaka of the Tangut, the Jin emperor's daughter, offered as tribute to spare their people. Each night, Genghis moved between tents, guarded by the Kashid, an elite 10,000, who kept him safe and tracked his path. The harem wasn't only desire, it was politics, weaving conquered peoples into the Mongol fabric. Imagine that weight. You're one of those women now, seized in a raid on Wulahai in 1209 AD. City walls once unbreakable fell to Mongol engines, and now you're in a yurt that smells of damp wool and burning herbs. Your silk dress is torn at the hem, the cold leaks through thin fabric and chills your bones. Outside the camp is alive, horses snort, men laugh, iron clatters as weapons are sharpened.
You hear the other women whisper, low and urgent. Some talk escape, but the steppe is vast and the Mongols don't stop. Others talk survival, how to please, how to carve a place in this new life. Faces flicker in the lamplight. A girl maybe 16, eyes hollow. An older woman with calloused hands, praying in the tongue you don't know. All different, bound by the same fate. The Mongol system was ruthless, but planned. Women were sorted, principal wives, concubines, slaves. Principal wives like Bura held status, ran their households, advised on tribal matters. Concubines, often highborn captives, lived in some comfort, but had no freedom. Slaves, like you, those channels, they connected everything. The auction blocks to the warehouses to the docks to the ships. One giant system to move human cargo without losing a single piece of property. Water dripped through grooves cut long ago, each drop like a tiny memory. The archaeologists followed the channels underground and mapped them, then called in experts, hydraulic engineers, because these weren't random ditches. The slope was fixed at 2%, just enough to carry waste without eroding the stone. But then came the shock. The channels split, big lines for waste and smaller ones, only 8 inches wide, that led elsewhere. They crawled through centuries of dirt, headlamps flashing over sharp chisel marks, until the lines ended in pools, limestone basins carved from symbol blocks. Why would slavers need filters? The sediment held the answer, layer after layer, like tree rings, with arsenic, mercury dust, and lead traces. They weren't cleaning waste, they were cleaning poison. Above, the warehouses told the rest. Each held 200 people. The base showed it. Post holes every 6 feet, iron rings between. The team rebuilt the plan, counted the space, 3 square feet per person, enough to sit, not to stretch. Drains below, air holes in the beams, airflow tuned to keep people alive, but weak. Too much air and they'd fight, too little and they'd die too soon. The balance was exact. But Dublin was only the start. In 830 CE, York revealed something worse than Dublin's holding houses. The team hadn't expected it. They thought it was a normal dig until they hit water-preserved timber, huge beams with joinery fit for a king's hall, spreading under today's Coppergate. They dug inch by inch. It wasn't a warehouse. Too fine, too divided. Then came heavy metal fittings, locks with extra pins, rooms set up for steps in a process. It was a sorting center. Processing, not storage. The wood carried grooves from years of chains and stains that tests named as human waste, blood, and other fluids the reports wouldn't spell out. Sound worked differently below ground. Echo chambers where screams would carry so others would hear, a weapon for the mind, breaking people before loading. The restraint setups weren't random either. Standing chains on the walls, flat platforms in the middle, overhead beams with pulleys. The Vikings planned every step of human pain. But the trade routes took the biggest effort. In 840 CE, the Eastern Road opened. Constantinople, Baghdad, where pale northern women drew top prices. 3,000 miles across seas, rivers, and land carries. How to move people that far? The ships held the key. At Hedeby Harbor, they found keels and hulls that didn't match normal cargo boats. These ships were rebuilt. Wider beams, lower decks, vents cut into the hulls. Capacity? 50 to 70 women per ship, stacked in layers, with just enough headroom to sit. Vents let in sea spray so wounds wouldn't close, slowing infection just enough. Every detail was calculated. Along the Dnieper route, way stations stood about 40 miles, walled camps with fresh water, pens built to a standard. The same drains, the same pools, from Novgorod to Kiev to the Black Sea, one continuous chain. Each stop had staff, ship hands who knew the right rations to keep captives alive, but weak, healers who treated injuries that would cut value, guards trained to control without marks. The system went beyond buildings, finance tools, credit notes. A woman taken in Ireland could be sold on promise in Constantinople, letters of credit, fixed prices, insurance for losses in transit, the roots of banking written in pain. The proof piled up, special tools, branding irons with merchant marks, scales for weighing people, ledgers with neat columns, species, age, health, origin, buyer, price, like shipping forms, but for lives. In York, they uncovered something worse than Dublin. An archaeologist gasped. Her lamp lit what shouldn't exist. York Coppergate, stone cells under the street, 64 of them, each 6 by 4 feet, with walls between, no windows, and drains linking them all. The supervisor arrived, looked once, and cleared the area for the senior team.
B faced the worst fates: domestic labor, forced service, or being sold in the busy markets of the Silk Road. The 13th century Persian writer Juvayni, who served the Mongols, wrote that women were traded like animals, their worth measured in horses or gold. Some were made to serve soldiers, their bodies used for comfort after battles, as described in a 2025 article on Vocal Media. Others, judged beautiful or rare, were sent to Genghis's harem, where they lived in a golden cage, as the same article said, their lives ruled by the Khan's moods. Falling from favor could mean being lowered in rank, sent away, or even death. The power balance was harsh. Men like Genghis held total control, but women still held quiet influence. Borta, his first wife, was trusted, and her advice was sought even in war. Mongol women in general, as Torbish notes, were active in public life, trading, driving wagons, and sometimes fighting beside men. Yet that freedom wasn't for everyone. Captive women had no such choice. You feel it now, the weight of eyes on you, the silent demand that you must obey. You must survive. The guard comes back, his boots crunching on the hard earth, and points at you. Your stomach knots, but you force yourself to rise, your legs weak. The other women look away, their silence louder than a scream. Genghis's practices were not just personal desires, they were plans. By taking women from every conquered tribe, he spread his bloodline through his empire, a genetic legacy that modern DNA confirms. A 2003 study in the American Journal of Human Genetics showed that 8% of men in the old Mongol lands, around 16 million today, carry a Y chromosome marker tied to Genghis and his sons. This was no accident. He fathered hundreds, maybe thousands of children, though only 9 with Borta are named. 4 sons, Jaki, Chagatai, Ogedei, and Tolui, and 5 daughters. The others, born to concubines and slaves, were not recorded, their mothers' names erased from memory. You wonder, as they lead you from the tent, if your child, should you have one, will be one of those forgotten, a shadow in the empire's endless line. The camp spreads wide before you, a sea of yurts under a star-heavy sky. The air is sharp, smelling of roasted mutton and a faint tang of blood. Warriors pass in the dark, laughing roughly, faces flush with kumis, the fermented mare's milk they drink after victory. You're taken to a bigger yurt, its doorway guarded by men with spears shining in firelight. Inside, the air is warmer, thick with incense and fur. Genghis sits on a low stool, hands on his knees. He doesn't look at you at first, his focus on a map with curled edges like dried leaves. You notice his lined face, the gray in his braid, signs of years spent on horseback, fighting and surviving. He speaks, voice low, almost soft, but with stone beneath. You don't know the words, but you know what they mean. This isn't a choice. The way Mongols treated women wasn't only Genghis's. His son, Ogedei, who ruled 1229 to 1241 AD, carried it on. The Persian writer Rashid al-Din, in the early 14th century, told how Ogedei punished the Iraq people in 1237 AD. 4,000 girls were violated by soldiers, their families forced to watch. then the girls were given away as slaves. The cruelty was a message, a sign of Mongol power. Yet, as Turbish points out, Mongol society wasn't always harsh. Adultery was punished by death in Genghis's early rule to stop feuds, but later the laws softened to fines. Single women and widows went judged harshly. Their freedom was striking compared to Song China, where foot-binding broke women's feet to show weakness. Mongol women who were free were strong, practical, and vital to nomadic life. But for you, a captive, that strength feels far away. Days blur into weeks. You learn the camp's rhythm, the pre-dawn stir of raiders preparing, the clatter of carts as the ordo moves, the whispers when women trade stories in low voices. You learn to read the Khan's moods, the way his eyes soften speaking of Bertha, the way they harden at news of rebellion. You learn to endure, to bury your grief. Some women adjust faster, their voices steadier, their eyes sharper. One night, Aisha, a Kharizmian, whispers a rumor that Genghis once shared a blanket with his rival Jumuka when they were young, a brotherhood that ended in betrayal and death. The story feels like a warning. Loyalty never lasts, even for the mighty. By 1215 AD, Genghis's army had taken Jiangdu, the Jin capital, and turned toward the Kharizmian Empire. The 1219 attack on Otar was a slaughter. The governor, Inalchuk, killed Genghis's envoys, and the Mongols answered by destroying the city, cutting open its people to find hidden wealth. As told in a 2025 Sky History article, women were seized in droves, some for the harem, others for markets. The trade in women, as Vocal Media says, was a pillar of Mongol wealth, built on suffering. You see it now in the faces of new captives, their eyes the same as yours that first night. The cycle repeats, endless as the steppe wind. Yet sometimes, small kindness breaks through. One evening, near the Helen Mountains, a Mongol woman, not a captive but born to the tribe, brings you a bowl of warm mare's milk. Her hands are rough, her face lined, but her gift is gentle. She says nothing, but her presence feels like a lifeline, a softness the wars haven't killed. Her name is Kulan, a minor wife, and she teaches you a few Mongol words, her voice steady. These moments are rare, but they keep you from breaking. Years pass, and Genghis grows older, his wars harsher. By 1227 AD, he is attacking the Shisha again, bent on crushing their rebellion. Rumors spread he is weak, hurt by a fall from a horse the year before. On August 18, 1227 AD, he dies in his camp near Yinwan. His body carried back to Mongolia in secret. Stories say, like those of Marco Polo, that his funeral was a massacre. 2,000 slaves killed so no one could find his grave. You are not there. You are still in the Ordo, now under one of his sons. The harem does not end, but its use changes. Without the Khan, the women drift. Some are forgotten, others traded to new masters. You wonder if you will ever see home again, or if the steppe will claim you, as it has so many others. The legacy of Genghis Khan's practices is not just in the children he fathered or the women he took. It's in the silence of the records, the stories never written. The secret history of the Mongols praises his victories but hides the human cost. Persian and Chinese writers like Juvain and Rashid al-Din give pieces of the truth, but even their words are shaped by their own aims. Today, the echoes of that suffering live on, not in books, but in the DNA of millions, and in the memories of women whose names were erased. You, the woman in the tent, are one of them, your life a thread in the endless fabric of an empire built on blood and power. As the fire burns low and the camp grows still, you sit alone. The ropes are gone, but the weight still burns on your wrists. The stars above are cold, empty. The steppe stretches forever. You remember that first night, the fear, the shadow at the tent's entrance. You survived, but at what price? The man who claimed you is dead, his empire cracking apart. Yet the scars on you and countless others remain. They are not spoken, not written, but they exist, etched in silence, carried on the night wind across the endless steppe. You are barely 20. Your body lies on the hard earth inside a yurt that stinks of damp horsehide and sour sweat. It is the year 1200 AD. Somewhere in the plains of the western Shia kingdom, the night is alive with fear. Smoke chokes your lungs, the smoke of burning homes beyond the canvas walls. Your wrists are bound with ropes that cut into your skin like teeth. Your heart races, drowning out the cries of the fallen in the distance. Hooves pound outside, a drumbeat of war. Mongol laughter cuts through the dark like a blade. You try to melt into the shadows, but there is no escape. The tent flap rips open. A man steps inside. His shape fills the space, broad and unbending against the glow of firelight. His eyes, cold as the winter steppe, lock on you. And though you've never seen him, you know him. Everyone does. Genghis Khan, born Temujin in 1162 AD. His name a curse whispered from the Gobi Desert to the cities of Jin. His presence is like a storm trapped in a man. As he comes closer, the truth crashes over you. You are not here by chance. You are a spoil of war, a trophy. The ropes binding you are nothing compared to the invisible chains of his power. Before we dive deeper into these hidden stories of survival and pain, if you enjoy discovering the truths that history hides, please hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you are listening from. I find it amazing that we are sharing these stories together, across the world, across time, joined by curiosity about the past. The camp outside is alive, like a beast. Its heart is made of clashing iron, roaring fires, and the cries of the broken. You are not alone in the yurt. Other women crouch nearby, their faces pale with ash, their eyes wide with fear. Some you know, neighbors, friends. Others are strangers torn from faraway lands. The Mongols don't care who you were, farmer's daughter, merchant's wife, noble sister. To them, you are property. A tool to make alliances, feed desires, or fill the empire's coffers. Genghis stands still, his fur cloak glowing in the lamp's dim light. His face is carved with lines and scars, his braid streaked with gray, yet his eyes are sharp, calculating. There is hunger there, not only for flesh, but for control, for the threads that hold empires together. He murmurs to a guard, a towering man with a scar across his face. The guard seizes a woman from the corner. Her cry cuts short as she is dragged into the night. You want to scream, to fight, but your body betrays you. Fear freezes you in place.
This is not just a story of conquests, though the chronicles love to sing of them. Genghis's cavalry storming across the steppe, his armies tearing down cities like Zhongdu in 1215 AD and Samarkand in 1220 AD. The empire he forged from 1206 to 1227 AD was a giant stretching from the Sea of Japan to the Caspian, built on ambition and blood. But behind the songs of victories lies a darker story, one the scribes ignored. The secret history of the Mongols, written in the 13th century, glorifies the Khan but skips the cost, especially for women. Persian writers like Juvayni and Rashid al-Din and Chinese records from Jin and Song give us glimpses. They tell us women like you, taken from Western Shah, Khwarazm, or the Kipchak steppes, were not just victims. You were tools in the machine, used to tie tribes, reward soldiers, and grow the Khan's legacy. To understand it, we must look at the man behind the myth. Temujin's life began with hardship. Born in 1162 AD on the banks of the Onon River, son of Yesuge, a minor chief of the Borjigin clan, and Hoelin, a woman stolen from the Merkit tribe. By 1171 AD, when Temujin was 9, his father was poisoned by Tartars, and the tribe abandoned his family to the cruel steppe. Hoelin raised her children on roots and small animals, teaching them to survive hunger and hide from enemies. The steppe was a brutal teacher. Loyalty was thin, power fragile. In 1181 AD, Temujin's young wife Berta was kidnapped by the Merkit.
a wound deeper than any blade. He rescued her with allies like Jamuha and Tohrul, but when she returned, she was pregnant. The child, Jochi, born in 1182 AD, was raised as his own, though doubt shadowed him. That wound shaped Temujin's view. Trust was weakness, control was survival. By 1206 AD, after years of war and betrayal, killing his half-brother Bektur, defeating Jamuha, crushing the Naiman, he united the Mongols and took the title Genghis Khan, universal ruler. His empire was not just an army, but a system of control. And women were its hidden gears. The nomadic Mongols used marriage and concubinage as tools. Genghis had 4 chief wives, Berta, Hulan, Yasui, and Yasugin. Each managed her own ordo, a moving camp that was both home and political base. His harem, as historian Basanjev Turbish notes in his 2023 book, Sex in the Land of Genghis Khan, may have held 500 women, though only 44 were officially recorded as wives or concubines. Many were high-born captives like Chaka, daughter of the Tengut king, or the Jin emperor's sister, offered as tribute to save their people.
Each night, Genghis moved between tents, his steps guarded by the Keshig, an elite force of 10,000 who followed his every move. The harem was not just indulgence, it was politics, binding conquered tribes to the Mongols through blood and duty. Picture yourself now, a captive from Wulahai, taken in 1207 AD when Mongol siege engines smashed the city's walls. Your silk dress, once a gift from your father, is torn at the hem. The steppe's chill seeps into your bones, numbing your hands. The yurt smells of damp wool and burning herbs, a faint sweetness mixed with fear. Outside, the camp hums. Horses snort, their breath white in the cold. Warriors sharpen blades, stones scraping iron in steady rhythm. The other women whisper, their voices thin and brittle. A girl barely 16 clutches her knees, eyes blank. An older woman, her hands rough from years of work, murmurs prayers in a language you don't know. Some speak of escape, but the steppe is a vast prison, and Mongol scouts ride faster than hope. Others speak of survival, of learning to please, of carving out a sliver of safety. You see it in their faces, the slow death of who they were, replaced by something harder. The Mongol system was exact in its cruelty. Women were sorted like animals, principal wives, concubines, slaves. Principal wives like Berta held power, managing trade and advising on disputes. Concubines, often daughters of defeated rulers, lived in gilded cages, their lives tied to the Khan's favor. Slaves like you might face the worst, cooking, cleaning, or serving soldiers. Juveni, the Persian chronicler, wrote of women traded for horses or gold, their worth measured in markets from Karakoram to Samarkand. A 2025 Vocal Media article tells of soldiers using captive women for comfort after battles, their bodies treated as a reward. The most beautiful were sent to the harem, where life was softer but still a cage. To fall from favor meant slavery, exile, or a quiet death. Power was a tightrope. Genghis held absolute control, but women like Berta held influence in shadows. She advised on politics and war, her voice heard even among generals. Mongol women, as Turbish notes, were central to nomadic life, driving wagons, tending herds, sometimes fighting. But captives had no such freedom. You feel it now, the weight of eyes, the silent demand to endure, to survive. The scarred guard returns, boots crunching, and points at you. Your stomach twists, but you rise, legs trembling. The other women look away, their silence screaming louder than words. Genghis's practices were not mere lust, they were strategy. By taking women from every tribe, Tengut, Khwarezmian, Kipchak, he wove his blood into the empire. A 2003 study in the American Journal of Human Genetics found that 8% of men in the former Mongol lands, some 16 million today, carry a Y chromosome marker tied to Genghis and his sons. He fathered hundreds, maybe thousands, though only 9 with Berta are named. 4 sons,
Jochi, Chagatai, Ogide, Tolui, and 5 daughters. The rest, born to concubines and slaves, faded into silence, their mothers' names erased. You wonder, as the guard leads you through the camp, if your child would be one of those shadows, lost to the steppes' memory.
The camp sprawls wide under a star-heavy sky. The air cuts sharp, smelling of roasted mutton and blood. Warriors move through the dark, faces flushed with kumis, their laughter harsh. You are taken to a great yurt, guarded by men with spears that gleam like fangs. Inside, warmth presses close, thick with incense and fur. Genghis sits low, hands on his knees, a map before him curling at the edges. His face is lined, his braids streaked with gray, but his presence bends the room like wind bends grass. He speaks, voice low, almost soft, but heavy with command. You don't understand the words, but you understand the meaning. There is no choice, only survival. This was not only Genghis. His sons and successors like Ogedai, who ruled from 1229 to 1241 AD, carried on the practice. Rashid al-Din records Ogedai's 1237 punishment of the Oirat, 4,000 girls assaulted before their families, then enslaved. It was a message, a warning of Mongol power. Yet Mongol life was not all cruelty. Torbish notes adultery, once punished by death, later brought fines. Single women had freedoms unknown in Song China, where foot-binding crippled women to show fragility. But for captives, freedom was a dream. You learned this as days turned to weeks. You memorized the camp's rhythm, the pre-dawn clash of arms, the creak of carts as the Ordu moves, the whispered stories in the dark. You learned Genghis's moods, his eyes soft for Berte, hard at rebellion. You bury your grief, your home fading. Some women adapt. A Khwarezmian named Aisha, sharp-eyed, whispers one night of Genghis and Jamuka, once brothers in arms who shared a blanket as youths, until Temujin ordered Jamuka's death in 1205 AD. The story is a warning. Even the closest bonds break. By 1215 AD, Genghis sacks Zhongdu. By 1219 AD, he turns on Khwarezm after its governor, Inalchuk, kills his envoys. The 2025 Sky History article tells of Otrar's fall. Citizens gutted, women enslaved. The slave trade, as vocal media notes, was a Mongol lifeline built on misery. You see it in the new captives, their eyes mirrors of your first night. Yet small kindness appears. Near the Helon Mountains, a Mongol woman named Kulan brings you warmed mare's milk. Her hands are rough, her face worn, but her gift is a lifeline. She teaches you Mongol words, patient and steady. These moments are rare, but they hold you together. By 1217 AD, Genghis is old, still besieging western Xia. Whispers say he is frail, hurt from a fall. On August 18, 1227 AD, he dies near Inchuan. His body carried away in secret. Marco Polo's tales claim 2,000 slaves were killed to hide his grave. You are still in the Ordu, now under one of his sons. The harem shifts, some women forgotten, others traded. You wonder if home is lost forever. The legacy of Genghis is not only in his conquests or children. It lies in silence, the women erased, their names gone. Huvayni and Rashid al-Din hint at the truth, but the real weight lies in what was never written. Millions carry his blood, but the mothers are ghosts. You sit alone. The ropes are gone, but their ache lingers. The stars above are cold. The steppe is endless. You survived, but the scars remain, carried on the wind that howls with the cries of the forgotten.